The United Football League is back for year 2, a feat not many American outdoor spring leagues can attest to. The league famously forming from the merger between the 2022 USFL relaunch and 2023 XFL return. Returning all 8 teams from last season, it is primed for another memorable year. The Arlington Renegades began their life in 2020 as the Dallas Renegades, going 2-3 before the shutdown, before returning in 2023 rebranded as Arlington. And through it all, they have been able to retain head coach Bob Stoops, making him the longest tenured in the league. As for that aforementioned 2023 season, they would go a disappointing 4-6, but a mid-season trade for spring icon Luis Perez allowed them to eke into the postseason, then getting hot and claiming the first XFL championship since 2001. Their first season in the UFL was not as fortunate, however, as they would again go below 500 at 3-7 and finish last in the XFL conference. This season, they returned quarterback Luis Perez for another season. Last year, despite the record, he led the league in passing yards and touchdowns. To pair with him in the backfield, they also returned 2020 XFL yardage leader, Michigan running back De'Veon Smith. And to round out the offense, they have also re-signed 2023 All-XFL wide receiver Deontay Burnett and UFL touchdown leader, tight end Sal Cannella, who combined for 83 receptions, 803 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And on defense, to pair with a front 7 already featuring 2 former All-League players in 2023 All-XFL DT Devontae Lambert and 2022 All-USFL linebacker Donald Payne, they have brought in 2020 unanimous All-American defensive end Davion Nixon and All-UFL and 2022 USFL Defensive Player of the Year defensive end Chris Odom, while also bringing back All-UFL corner Ajeen Harris. They also have a league icon and former NFL starting punter Marquette King. It was a new league but the same results for the Birmingham Stallions in their first season in the UFL, as they would go on to claim their 3rd consecutive title in dominating fashion. Head coach Skip Holtz has amassed a 26-4 record since being named the Stallions' inaugural head coach, and he looks to continue that trend. Though they lost league MVP quarterback Adrian Martinez to the NFL, they have reloaded, bringing back 2023 USFL MVP Alex McGow, who racked up over 2,100 yards, 20 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions, while adding another 403 yards and 5 scores in that campaign. They've also returned last year's backup, former 3rd-round pick Matt Corral, and signed former Philadelphia Stars and Memphis Showboats starter Case Cookus to round out the quarterback room. They then returned a great 2-headed running attack in running backs Ricky Person and CJ Marble, who combined for 591 yards and 10 scores last season. For targets, they have returned pretty much everyone, in wide receivers Deion Kane, Amari Rogers, Marlon Williams, and tight end Jay Sternberger, together having collected over 2,500 yards and 26 touchdowns in their Stallions' careers. While on defense, they have returned 2 All-League players in defensive lineman Carlos Davis and defensive back A.J. Thomas, while also reloading the roster with former NFL starting linebacker Tay Crowder and tons of former All-Conference players like Bradley Ain, Ronnie Perkins, Perion Winfrey, Mario Goodrich, and Myjay Sanders. The DC Defenders jumped into football fans' hearts during the 2020 XFL season with their fan section's dedication to the Beer Snake, though that season would end in disappointment, first with a collapse after a hot start, and then with the league suspension. New head coach Reggie Barlow would then make things fare much better in their next season, going a league best 9-1 in 2023 before falling to the Renegades in the championship. Next season, however, they would take a step back, going 4-6 and missing the playoffs in the new UFL. And now with Barlow leaving for Tennessee State, interim head coach Shannon Harris will look to regroup. And to do that, they have brought back 2-year starter and 2023 XFL Offensive Player of the Year quarterback Jordan Ta'amu, who has over 3,700 yards and 29 touchdowns as a defender. They also brought back 2 of their leading targets in wideouts Ty Scott and Chris Rowland, the latter of which was also an All-League returner. On their front 7, they have returned former 2-time All-League defensive lineman Devin Bellamy and acquired former Tennessee Volunteer Kyle Phillips in the offseason. While in the secondary, they have retained All-League and former first-round pick DeAndre Baker. They also paired with him former second-round pick Kelvin Joseph. The Houston Roughnecks, despite bearing the name of the former XFL team, are actually a direct continuation of the USFL's Houston Gamblers. Originally coached by former Houston Cougar and Texas A&M head Kevin Sumlin, he was replaced by former Tulane lead Curtis Johnson in year 2. Originally seeing a slight tick-up year-over-year, going 5-5 in 2023 over the 3-7 campaign in 2022, things came crashing down in 2024, with the name changed to the Roughnecks, suffering a 1-9 season. With that, they have almost entirely cleaned house, allowing many former team icons to leave, such as former starting quarterback Reed Sinnett, 2023 USFL Offensive Player of the Year running back Mark Thompson, and 2022 USFL Defensive Player of the Year Chris Odom. At quarterback, they have brought back last year's backup Nolan Henderson, but also brought in Jalen McClendon and former Baltimore Raven Anthony Brown. They did bring back 2024 UFL receptions leader Justin Hall, who collected 56 receptions for 604 yards and 3 touchdowns last season, and also were able to bring back tight end Josh Peterson after his stint in the NFL. On defense, to match with former second-team All-SEC linebacker Christopher Allen, they were able to sign their 2024 UFL first-round pick Ayabi Oki. While in their secondary, they have locked up former first-round pick Damon Arnett to pair with former fifth-round pick Corn Elder. They also were able to add former Stallions kicker Chris Blewett to bolster their special teams unit. The Memphis Showboats story began in 2023 after they took over for the short-lived Tampa Bay Bandits. With their third coach in 3 years, former Cardinals and Titans head Ken Withinghut now leads the Boats. At quarterback, they have acquired former Michigan Panthers starting quarterback E.J. Perry, who wowed at times but tenure was hampered by injuries. For a receiving core, they have returned Jonathan Adams, who hauled in 33 balls for 441 yards last season, as well as bringing in former Pittsburgh Mauler Isaiah Henney and former New England Patriots tight end Ryan Izzo. They have also signed athlete Kai Loxley out of the CFL, where he saw time at both quarterback and wide receiver. On the defensive line, they have former All-USFLer John Atkins and former NFL starter PJ Hall. While at linebacker, they added former Buck Buchanan Award winner Zeke Vanderberg. And in the secondary, they made mass improvement, adding former All-USFL cornerback Mark Gilbert and former second-round pick safety Obo Melanfonwu, and have the hopes of regaining former NFL All-Rookie and third-round pick Cameron Danzell off of IR at some point this season. Additionally, they also have a strong special teams unit featuring Matt Coughlin and Matt Mengel. Mike Nolan's Michigan Panthers look to have another good season after his Coach of the Year performance last year, replacing Jeff Fisher after his 2-8 inaugural season. Nolan has went 11-9 since, with a 7-3 performance last year. With a quarterback room consisting of Danny Etling, Rocky Lombardi, and Bryce Perkins, they should be due for competent play regardless. And to pair with whoever is under center, they retain the team's leading rusher in running back Matt Colburn, who averaged 4.5 yards on 90 attempts last year. Their receiving room left room to desire last year, though, but they have retained leading receiver Thayoshi Mariner and Samson Nakua. They have also brought in wide receivers Malik Turner and Jalen Moore, as well as tight end Jalen Weidemeyer, to round out the group. On defense, they should be able to continue to thrive, though, most notably through the retentions of 2023 USFL Defensive Player of the Year linebacker Frank Ginda and 2024 UFL Defensive Player of the Year and Breland Speaks. The San Antonio Brahmas surprised the world as the Wade Phillips-led squad turned around a 3-7 team, going 7-3, and beating the Battlehawks on their way to a title game appearance. That story, however, ended in disappointment as they would be thrashed 25-0 in that game, but with a season to remember regardless. They will, however, have a new quarterback this season, as both Quentin Dormandy and Chase Garbers are gone. In their stead, they have Garrett Goratano, Kevin Hogan, and Kellen Mond. At running back, they have returned the team's leading rusher and third leading rusher in John Lovett and Anthony McFarland, both coming off seasons where they averaged 4.1 yards per carry. At receiver, they have brought back their number 1 target in Jonathan Kirkland and their number 3 pass catcher in Marquez Stevenson, and also made a big signing in former Philadelphia Eagle Greg Ward. Additionally, they also have former 5-star prospect tight end Blaze Mack. On defense, they made the key retentions of former All-XFL linebacker Jordan Williams, All-UFL linebacker Tavante Beckett, and cornerback Darius Phillips, while making the key additions of former 4th-round defensive lineman Rashad Lawrence and 2nd-round corner Greedy Williams. And of course, they have the league's most high-profile player and kicker Donald De La Haye. And finally, we have perhaps the biggest team in spring football, the St. Louis Battlehawks. After finishing XFL Conference Best 7-3, they came up just short in the postseason, falling to the Brahmas at home. Coach Anthony Beck's squad suffered perhaps the biggest loss of the offseason, though, with the release of quarterback A.J. McCarron, now left with either Manny Wilkins or Max Duggins to take the reins. In the backfield, they retained the team's leading rusher in Jacob Saylor, who averaged 4.9 yards on 94 carries last year. For receivers, they retained UFL Offensive Player of the Year Hakeem Butler, who hauled in 45 receptions for 652 yards and 5 touchdowns last season, as well as their number 3 target in Jakor Pearson, who had 26 receptions and 217 yards of his own. Additionally, they signed former second-round pick Denzel Mims to round out the room. On defense, they have returned former All-XFL lineman Austin Feoliu, former XFL Defensive Player of the Year linebacker Pita Tampopinu, linebacker Mike Rose, and cornerback Chris Payton-Jones, and have made key signings of linemen Phil Hoskins and Isaiah Mack, and defensive back Lucas Dennis. On special teams, they have also made the splash signing of former NFL All-Rookie kicker Rodrigo Blankenship. The season kicks off this Friday as the St. Louis Battlehawks take on the Houston Roughnecks on Fox. The season will run 10 weeks, followed by a 4-team playoff featuring the top 2 teams from each conference, and culminating in the championship on Saturday, June 14th on ABC.